When people are divided, it is harder to complete a task. This is why establishing a sense of unity within a country is very important. Unity is even more important during wartime. During World War II, which lasted globally from 1939 to 1945, all sides focused heavily on establishing a spirit of national cooperation. Such a spirit had an importance during the war because all members of a country had a role that they could play to help. In wars, sacrifices don't only happen on the front lines. They happen on the home front as well. On the front lines, the task is often simple: fight the enemy or die. On the home front, however, it is a little more difficult to be convinced to help. In the United States of America, as well as Germany, sacrifices on the home front were encouraged and also sometimes government imposed. In the US, the government wanted to ensure a supply of food to soldiers, and as a result, food rationing was put in place for the public. When people do not have as much access to food as they desire, or that they are used to, they can feel panic or feel cheated. To avoid this, the US government tried to instill in the public that the reason for the food rationing was to support soldiers and to win the war. The US did this through the use of propaganda. Propaganda was used in World War II to manipulate the public's attitude. Examples of propaganda in America included posters, radio broadcasts, movies, and cartoons. Germany had similar types of propaganda as America, but the ideas they tried to get across were different. Prior to World War II, the Nazi Party rose to power in Germany. Because not all Germans were Nazis, the Nazi German government had to convince people of the Nazi Party's beliefs. One of the core Nazi beliefs was that the Jewish people, as well as other groups, were subhuman. One of the ways Nazis managed to convince this idea was through the use of propaganda. The Nazis used the same forms of propaganda as other nations and groups, but the content was different. An example of Nazi propaganda were posters that depicted Jewish people as thieves and demons. Other Nazi propaganda emphasized the idea that the Nazi Party, and Hitler specifically, would bring greatness to Germany. The Reich Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, which was run by Joseph Goebbels, was the organization tasked with creating and publishing Nazi propaganda. The organization in the United States with the same task as the Reich Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda was the Office of War Information. This was set up by Franklin Roosevelt and run by Elmer Davis. The US used propaganda to spread information to the public and to provide an understanding of what sacrifices should be made for the war. Ideas the US tried to get across through propaganda were to promote secrecy, production of military equipment, gas rationing, and more. Propaganda is used to manipulate. While the US and Germany had completely different goals in global terms, both nations used similar forms of propaganda.